Okay. So let's get started with SQL Server Basic course. Hi, I'm Arun Balchandran from Go Online Trainings. To give you a brief overview about myself, I have been into this industry since 2002 and mainly into the data side. So I have had experiences in SQL Server Database Engine, in SQL Server Analytics Engine, which is called SSAS, reporting, SSRS, ETL tool like SSIS, and I have also had experience in terms of programming languages like C, C++, .NET, C Sharp basically, and .NET framework. I have also been consulting in SharePoint. This is my introduction. I have done both training and consulting, done corporate trainings for many clients and also consulting for some of the clients. So with this, I stop the introduction. So let me now share with all of you the coverage that we are going to have. And these 2 days, the first 2 days, you will have a demo session. So therefore, it will be mainly on what is going to be covered, etc. So just let me share the coverage with you. Yes. So what is going to be covered and for whom this basic course is going to be? Before onset and any confusion, I will just clarify one thing. So we have demo that is running for 2 sessions consecutively. The first session is a basic session, which is assuming people do not know anything about SQL Server. Okay, so this is the session. It is 8:15 to 9:15. The second session will be 9:30 to 10:30, wherein we will talk about advanced concepts. So their assumption is people know SQL Server. So I am stating this assumption clearly so that we know how it is, so that people are not confused. So let us, this is a basic SQL Server course. What is the objective? Introduce people or participants who are coming into SQL Server. That is the objective. So SQL Server is a database engine. We will look at it more in detail and also talk about certain T-SQL. T-SQL is a language. So we will see certain language features and certain other features of the engine. So engine features as well as language feature. Of course, we will introduce to what is the meaning of database, etc. This is the basic course. Advanced course assumption is you know all of this. So there are different audiences for which the 2 courses are. So now 8:15 to 9:15, it is the basic course that we are looking at. What is the entry profile? What is expected of the participants who are coming? They are new to SQL Server. That is our expectation, that they would be new to SQL Server. And the basic knowledge on tools like storing data like Excel is good. If you don't have, that is fine. If it is there, certain concepts that we are going to see will be grasped better and faster. What is the mode of training? It will be theory sessions which will have demo. And once demo in the sense how that particular feature works. So if you take the entire course, 80% of the course will be theory and demo. But there are few topics where only theory would be taken because there is no demo for those topics and you will look at them. Now, what is the requirement from your end? So SQL Server, of course, if it is installed in your system, it is the best because exercises will be given and you should be doing those exercises. Then, of course, installation, how the steps, how it has to be installed, all that instruction will be there along with the databases. So there are certain databases we will give you using which we will do the course, run the course. The duration of the course is 30 hours. So we take 5 hours a week, leaving the weekends, and 1 hour each day. So that way, if you go, it would be around 1.5 months for the 30 hours to get over. But at the end of this 1.5 months, you will be very comfortable using SQL Server as a database engine. Okay, and this is very, very important. The fundamental of data lies in here. So that part has to be clear. Now, next, introduction. What is the coverage, broad coverage? We will be looking at introduction to databases. Before we introduce you to SQL Server, you have to know the context of data in business. So that is what is the first topic. It is just introduction. And then we will look at what is OLAP, what is OLTP, then what do we mean by ER modeling, what is normalization, what is the logical architecture of SQL Server, etc. Okay, and then finally we will be looking at table design. At the end of this introduction, you will know why you are learning SQL Server, what is the positioning of the database engine, what is the market, etc. So, and you will know when a data is given to you by the business, how do you model certain tables? And the tables will be there, and those tables will be utilized for storing the data. So the first part is introduction to databases, and also give overview of how a database, the data which is available in business, how they are converted into tables first. This is called structured data we are dealing with. Of course, there are unstructured data as well, and there are other features of unstructured data. Right now, we are focusing on structured data. And I'll explain what is structured data. If you go to Excel sheet, you have tables and columns. Each column is having a particular data type. That is called structured data, where a structure is there and the data is stored within the structure. Then you have semi-structured data like XML and unstructured data like the image. So here we are mainly focusing on structured data. Then table design will be talked about. 3 important constraints for data to go in. This is the check that any database engine should do. Before you go to table design, one more topic will be discussed, which is the logical architecture of SQL Server. What is SQL Server? What are the components of SQL Server? How they are all related to each other? This is what we will be looking at. Then, when you come to table design, we will look at when the data is being entered into the table, what are the rules that I should be setting? So we have data types. We have data types which give data integrity. That means I should be allowed to enter only one kind of data in one column. In date column, I should not be allowed to enter character data. So data types, take a look at that. Then we have something called entity integrity. And then we have something called check constraint. So we have entity integrity and check constraint is business integrity. So we'll look at all the 3 types of integrity. Of course, in business integrity, we also have trigger, which is the last portion of this training. Then we will look at T-SQL basic and DML. That is, okay, now I have taken the data, I have made the structure ready. I have to insert the data. How do I insert the data using T-SQL? So T-SQL first uses DDL, data definition language, to create tables, databases, etc. Then it uses DML, which is called data manipulation language, to insert the data. So the data definition, that means creation of table, creation of columns, etc., is done using data definition language. Both DML and DDL, we will see that it is T-SQL based, and that will be looked at. So by the end of this topic, you will come to know how to create tables, etc., using code, and how to insert the data into the table using code. By then the table design would also be ready. So you know the table design. So the table is ready for taking the data in. Once the data is inside, one of the most important purposes of storing data is retrieving the data. You see the day-to-day transactions also. Like you go to a store, it is going to store who are the customers who are coming in, the sales that are happening for the customer, etc. We are going to store all that information. This is point one. When that information is stored, sometimes I would require to retrieve the information because I need to retrieve how much of item is available in stock when the customer comes to purchase. So therefore, there is retrieval of data, and for retrieval of data, we use queries. Again, the language would be T-SQL, but the purpose would be to query the information or retrieve the data. So what are we going to do? How are we going to retrieve if you look at it? So we will see writing basic SQL Server queries, we will be able to retrieve the data. So we have select clause, you have from clause, then you can sort the data using order by, you can filter the data, the raw data, grouping and aggregation. So we will be looking at different features of how to query the data and retrieve the data. Then we go to SQL Server joins. In SQL Server joins, we look at how to get the data from more than one table. And there are different join types which we will be looking at. Then we have SQL Server subqueries. And in subqueries, we will be looking at how to write a query inside a query. What are those scenarios where you will have to write a query inside query, etc. Then we have T-SQL, stored procedures, cursors and functions. So T-SQL as a language is there. Here we would have learned some keywords when you're writing query, etc. Here we are going to learn the structure of the language. Like for example, if, else, looping, using variables, right? So this part will be very useful. Then we will look at stored procedure, how to create a small business logic, how to implement a small business logic using SQL Server. That is called a stored procedure. So we'll see how to use in parameter, out parameter, return type, and creating and calling the stored procedure for all the three variations. This is what we will be looking at. Okay. Now, cursors. So cursors is a procedure wherein you go and do certain, you can say certain operations row by row. So we'll look at what is server-side cursors, and in server-side, what is static, dynamic, key set driven. Then we'll be looking at functions. Functions are mainly utilized for the purpose of if there is something difficult for me to, calculate, do some calculations, I will use functions. Then finally, the final topic would be triggers and views. And in triggers and views, we will be looking at DML triggers mainly. DML in the sense, when do you require first a trigger? What is the purpose of the trigger? Is mainly to ensure certain business rules to be implemented while inserting the data, deleting the data, or updating the data. So we'll look at DML triggers. We will look at post triggers and instead of triggers. So this is a technical term. You will come to know more about it as we go on to SQL Server. Then we have creating views. So we create views wherein we create a select statement and we don't want to see the entire table. We want to retrieve only some portion of the data. Then we will look at indexes and indexed view. So this is the topic we are going to cover in basic SQL Server. Again, for the benefit of those who have joined a little later, this is 8:15 to 9:15. The slot is for basic SQL Server. And 9:30 to 10:30 will be a slot for advanced SQL Server. So right now we are covering what all will be there as part of basic SQL Server. So these are the topics that will be there as part of basic SQL Server. Before we proceed further, I would like to share with all of you the those who are interested in the course. I would just like to share with you the URL that you should use to fill in. So this is the URL. You can see this is the student information URL. So you can use this to fill in, give your information like email ID, etc., your phone number, and then we from Go Online Training will contact you. So therefore, this part you can do. So for the benefit of everyone, I'm going to place it in chat, common chat, and those who would like to fill this can fill it. Okay. Now, let us go to the first topic. So this I will again remind later. So we'll go to the first topic. The first topic that we have is what is the difference between OLTP and OLAP? This topic mainly is introduced because many of them are not aware of what is the purpose of data in business. See, data is very important now. Data is used for businesses, and not only data is used for businesses, it is used for AI also now. Unless and until the data is available, the AI models cannot get trained. If AI models don't get trained, then automatically there is no AI at all. There is no question of intelligence. So intelligence also requires data. Data is very important for usual business as well as AI. And of course, AI is also important for collecting data. That is a little advanced. So to start with, this is what it is. Then, how does data flow in business? This is what we are going to look at. Initially, the data flows into the business whenever there is a transaction from the end of the customer. So this is called B2C, business to customer. So for example, you go to say a chain of store, which is selling provision, a supermarket, you can say. So any one branch you go, you purchase, there is a transaction happening between you and the business. You purchase, that information has to be stored in. And this, if you notice, is transaction that is happening. So the data has to be stored. The data is called operational or transactional data. Why this is called operational and transactional data? Is there something different? Yes. There is something called as historic data, where there is no transaction happening. So there is no new data that is coming in, but there is data which is stored as history. And from that data, I should be able to cull out information, which is also called insight. So how a business is running, just by looking at numbers, I may not know how the business is running. I have to observe certain patterns, and that comes into the area of analysis. Therefore, we have something called OLTP, Online Transaction Processing System, where data is entered as the transaction is happening with the business. Then you have Online Analytical Processing System, where the data which is inside the system is analyzed for patterns to figure out how the business is doing. To give you an example of pattern, I'll tell you, you can store the data of sales that is happening every day. Over a period of month, you can observe when people come in the morning to the store, what kind of items they purchase. When they come in the evening, what kind of items they purchase. These are all data patterns. When they come at night, what kind of items they purchase. When they come in the beginning of the month, what kind of items they purchase. When they are in between, what kind of items they purchase. And when they are at the end, what kind of items they purchase. So you can actually see all the patterns and then figure out next month, how am I going to purchase? What is it that I am going to stock? And over a period of 1 year, you will know each month, each season, what kind of products are going to be sold by you. You know, the people who are from Marwad, called Marwadis, they are very much into business. For them, all of this is trained in the mind. So they know this part of the year, this is what is going to be sold. So they will ensure that they get. So this is the power of data analysis. Now, if you look at the whole thing, we will see what is the purpose of OLTP, which is called online transaction processing. Why it is called online? Because the data should be available all the time. And then you have OLAP. OLAP is online analytical processing system. The data is on analytical data, data which is giving you patterns, and it is available all the time. Therefore, OLAP and OLTP both have OL common, online. Okay. Now, let us understand the purpose of the online analytical transaction processing system. In fact, initially to start with, when we are talking about SQL Server Database Engine, we are only going to go through OLTP. Let us assume that you have an application and the application stores data in Excel, Notepad, or database. So you have these three different sources of data. If I'm a very small business, I don't want to invest in SQL Server Database Engine. I may not have money to invest in even Excel or Access. So I will use Notepad. So basic Notepad is what I use. And therefore, what kind of data it is? It is transactional data. The data is, you have the application, sales application, let us take example. Go to Amazon, you have the Amazon application. When you purchase something from Amazon, when sales happen, even when you go to a store, then automatically the data is inserted either into Excel, Notepad, or database. So this is called operational database or operational data. So online transaction processing database system is what we are using to store operational or transactional data. So therefore you will have maximum inserts, new data being inserted. There will be update. For example, if a product is there, if the price of the product has changed, there has to be an update. So there will be an update. Then there will be a delete also. So when you don't want a product, you are not going to be selling the product anymore. You don't want that product to appear in the application. So you will be deleting the product. Then what is the purpose? Maximum data in, minimum data out. That means minimum data retrieval, maximum data is going to be inserted, updated, and deleted. Why minimum data out? For example, even while you are purchasing, the sales counter people need to know whether the particular item is available or not. If somebody comes and asks you, ask the salesperson, see, this is not available and I want this item. He will go into the system and check whether the stock is available. So data out is there, but minimum data out. Similarly, at the end of the day, the manager may want to know that how my store is doing. So he may ask for some basic data out. Then the data that you see for transactions, that data will be normalized. What do I mean by normalized? They will not have any duplication. Why? For example, suppose there is Amazon. Amazon is taking customer information, your name, your address. Suppose Amazon decides to store it in multiple places, your name, your address, your phone number. What happens? If a time comes where you want to change the address, it will change in one place. And if the application is not created cautiously, then application may end up not changing it in other places. One is it's a waste of time because you are changing the same, first of all, you're storing the same information in multiple places. And when there is a change, it has to be changed in multiple places. So therefore, in transactional data, you don't want to store duplicates. Analytical data, duplicates can be stored. Why? Because you want to analyze. So we will look at that. Then you have different data formats. What do you mean by different data formats? You can see here only. If a business is very small, it will store in Notepad. If it is a medium business, it can afford Excel. If it is a business which is a little bigger, it can afford a database, transactional or relational databases. So therefore, you have different data formats. And these data formats are basically have to be unified later when you want to do analysis. Like Within the same business, I can have different data formats. Like there is one store which is in a village. I will not use database. I will use what? I will use Excel or Notepad. But if the same application, the same chain store is selling in city, then I will use a database. Therefore, you don't have control over what the business uses. As a database engineer, you need to know, or as a data engineer, you need to know that there will be different formats or different ways of storing the data. And therefore, you also need to know there will be different data formats. Then frequently changing, update, insert, delete. This is very important. So this is frequently changing. We know how, because it's transactional data. Therefore, it is frequently changing. And then you have, how do you model this data? This is more technical. When we come to ER modeling, I'll explain a little more. Modeling, I'll explain now as a concept. When data comes into the business, data is present, but I want to make a logical idea or concept of how the data is going to be stored. It is a logical idea, not yet stored physically in the hard disk. And how is it done? For transactional data, we use what is called as ER modeling, entity relationship modeling. And when you are going to create something, like let's say a house, big house, or a big project flat system, you will never be able to appreciate how the feel will be unless you are shown a model. So these big builders, what they will do, when they create a small project, then for that project, they'll create a small model. Even when you're building a house, a small model, so that you have the feel, what rooms will be there, how it will be, you will be able to imagine. So the purpose of the model is, I have not yet created something, but I create a logical counterpart so that it becomes easy for somebody to imagine or visualize. So that is called ER modeling. Then what about the data? So why are we using ER modeling? Finally, to create tables. And then the data will go into the table. Then what kind of data will it be? It can be dirty data. What do I mean by dirty data? Data which is going to be having some kind of errors. Why? Because there is a direct human interaction. You are standing the sales counter. Instead of 1, you type 2 and you enter. Now you can't update it now immediately in the bill. So you go and you change, or you add one more item 1, or you add another item. If suppose that item is not available in the database suddenly due to some reason, mistakes can happen. So that product is not available in the database, but you can't tell the customer that it is not available in the database, I cannot sell. You have to sell. And what does he do? He has another product with similar price. So therefore he will say, this is the product that I sold, similar price. For him it is a problem because he thinks that one extra product is sold. But as far as transaction is concerned, it is done. He has got the money from the business, from the customer. And therefore data may be dirty. And you can have duplicate entries of data also. Sometimes even the customer makes mistake. We go to the shop, we buy something. After the billing is over, we change the mind. No, this is not required. I want something else. So changing of mind is there. Automatically, what will the accounter do? He will tell you, no, it is not possible. No, it is already billed. But if the business is growing, he would want to give some discount to the customer. So therefore, he will say, okay, you go and keep. I will see what to do. So these are the places where data may be dirty. Sometimes entry of data can be duplicate, again due to error, human error. So these are all the possibilities of the these are all the characteristics of the data which is transactional in nature. For OLTP systems, the data is transactional or operational, and these are the characteristics. Now we will go to the next system called OLAP. And then we'll come to ETL and reporting. Before we go to the next system, again, I'll bring your attention for those who have joined. This is a basic SQL course, which is from 8:15 to 9:15. there is an advanced SQL course from 9:15 to 10:50. Those who want to know what is going to be covered in advance can come for that. So here basic it is, and as you see, this is the URL which would be required by all of you to fill in if you are interested in this training and more information about other trainings. So you just fill in this form, your information like name, email address, and mobile number, and people from Go Online Training will get back to you. And then if you have certain questions, those can be answered. So this is going to be copied onto the chat window, common chat window. I will copy it onto the common chat window so that everybody can fill. I request all of you who are interested to fill in and then log out when the session ends. Okay, now we have completed the OLTP part. Now let us go on to the OLAP part. What is this OLAP? It is called analytical data. Data which is fit for analysis is called analytical data. And in analytical data, there are certain things that we see which is required. What is the first thing? First thing, in analytical data, there is no much of transaction or operations like insert, update, delete. No. It is maximum data out and minimum data in. Data in is required. Why? Because you will have certain operations, and those operations data that you have collected have to be analyzed, and there is a separate system. Why there is a separate system, you will come to know, because the nature of data is different. Transactional data, nature is different. Analytical data, nature is different. And because why the nature is different? Because the purpose also is different. Transactional is for operations, analytical is for analyzing the pattern. So therefore, minimum insert, update, delete or transaction, maximum output. Then we have the data which is in denormalized form. This is where duplication of data is allowed. Why? Because there is no change that is going to be made to the existing data. Suppose I have a product, Pepsi, let us say, which was priced 10 rupees 1 month back, and now it is priced at 20 rupees. Then in transactional system, there will be only one entry, which is Pepsi 20 rupees. You cannot have two entries. Then there will be a problem, which product the person has purchased. Whereas in an analytical system, there will be two entries. What are the two entries? It will be the old price product as well as the new price product. Why? Because the analytical data should contain data for the history also. Because when you are calculating, let's say, previous month's sales, and in the previous month, the product price was 10, you have to consider that product price when you're looking at sales. Similarly, product price 20. So for all analysis, I have to store history data. Therefore, the data can have duplication. You can have the same product information multiple times with only the change of price. And it is for the ease, so that it is fast in query. So the data out is fast. Then what about the formats? The formats are regularized. I have 10 different branches, chains, stores, and from each store I am getting the data. Data from different format. One stores in Excel, another stores in Notepad, another stores in database. But I want to pull all of them into a consistent format, otherwise called standardized format or regularized format. So let us assume that all of it gets into a SQL Server database. So here formats are regularized, standardized. Here formats are different. So each store can have different data format way it is stored, and therefore that is how it is. Then what about what kind of operation is done in the database, analytical database? Selection, more query, more retrieval. Why? Because this purpose of this database itself is for analysis. So I need to retrieve the data, analyze, retrieve the data, analyze the business. And then you have a different modeling technique. Like you use a small cardboard model for modeling houses, flats. But for certain other things, you use a mathematical model. If you're from engineering background, you know mathematical models. So models are the logical, you can say, way to represent, or the logical representation of the actual data. That is called modeling. And why do you do logical representation? Because you can understand how the data will be stored, how it is moved, etc. Data here has to be clean. Otherwise, what will happen? Person will think that, yes, I'm going to, I see that there is $70 million coming from a particular product. Let us say a brush. But actually, the data is dirty. The data is dirty, then that 70 billion, that information that I'm seeing is wrong information. And based on the information, what I will do? Next month, I will purchase more of that product. And then suddenly I find that the product is not selling. So data has to be precise. Here there can be little approximation, because here we are mostly interested in finishing the business, getting the money. Whereas in analyzing, you are more interested in accuracy of data. Clean data means accurate data. And then, of course, there should be no duplicate entries. If there are duplicate entries, what do I mean by duplicate entries? Here you are saying it is deduplication. Here you are saying duplicate data. When I say duplicate entries, that means for the same product, for the same customer, same time, there should be no two entry, which is a mistaken entry. So the duplicate entry such should not be there. Duplicate data can be there. 2 times I can have the name of the customer, 2 times name of the product, etc. But transactional data should not have any duplicate entry. So the duplication has to be removed. So this is how the system is. Now, we know that when you are entering the data, when the business is happening, the data is having a different nature. When you get the data for analysis, the data is having different nature. When I move the data from the transaction system to the OLAP system, the moving process is done through the tool called ETL, or a process called ETL, extract, transform, and load. And in extract, transform, and load, you have change of data formats, change of data types. Why? We have seen different data formats, same data format, etc. Data types also will be the same in Excel, different data type, in Notepad mostly text, in database different data types. So all that have to be standardized. So data types have to be changed, standardizing the database, data formats have to be changed. Then you have to remove duplicate entries, transaction entries, remove dirty data or clean dirty data, and denormalize the data. So here it is in normalized form. Here it is in denormalized form. These changes are done. And how are these changes done? By a tool which will extract the data from the OLTP system and put it onto the OLAP system. And that such a tool is called an extract, transform, load tool. Okay. An example of such a tool is SSIS in SQL Server database. So therefore, the ETL tool will have to take care of doing all of this and pumping the data from OLTP to OLAP. Now, what is the difference? In our case, the data is structured. You can also have unstructured data. For example, when you go and analyze these social media messages, they are all unstructured. There's no structure to that. You have to go through the text and then get the information. So there, the processing will be slightly different. There also you have transaction processing. That means where the data is entered, where your Facebook, entries, messages, or the posts that we call, they are all entered. But you have to cull out the data or get the data out to analyze. So therefore, ETL tool would be required there also. And finally, after the data is analyzed, or even as the data is entered into the system, reporting is very important. I need to know what's happening to my business. So if I have analytical data, the reporting tool will give me patterns. And from the patterns, I will come to know what it is. Right? And if I want information as to what are the products that, how much of quantity is available in my store, I still require a tool to report. And I'll be using, but still, the OLTP system, not the OLAP system. So reporting is very important at OLTP level and at OLAP level. So this is the basics of your database movement in any business. Now let's move on to what are the stages while converting the requirement of a customer to a table in the database. Like you have the current physical system initially, which may be in physical form. Like if you go to banks, you will have registers, etc. Or if you go to a company, public sector bank registers maybe. Nowadays, even there you have some systems. They're already in place. So that's called current physical system. You gather the requirement. And after you gather the requirement, you start modeling the system. And who is it who does the modeling? He is a modeler. He is otherwise called, sometimes he is called the business manager. So he will know the business and he will model. And he would either create a ERM, entity relationship model, or a data model based on whether you are designing an OLTP system or an OLAP system for the business. So the modeler. Now, once the modeling is done, then the physical system which is there, maybe it is a computer-based system or a manual system. The physical system which is there will get converted into logical system. So it is called current logical system. Again, to entity relationship model and dimensional model. Okay. Then what happens during this conversion now? Now, the current logical system, which is in the form of entity relationship model or dimension model, has to be converted into proposed logical system. Proposed logical means what? Make certain changes. For what? For the sake of performance, right? And for the sake of usability. So there, design is involved. So first you have high level design, which decides how many databases will be there, etc., etc. We will look at this tomorrow. And then low level design. So low level design there, you will be looking at how to create a table, or how to optimize a particular table, mainly creation of a table from the model. That is the low level design. What data type, etc. Then comes the proposed logical system. In the proposed logical system, you will have logical tables with appropriate columns, etc. and data types. So you will have the system ready. But now the system has to be optimized. And therefore that optimization is done using a process called normalization. And who does that? Mainly it is done by a person who is a designer only. And he will remove the duplicate data. So once the data duplication is removed, you have the proposed logical system. From the proposed logical system, you go to proposed physical system, where you start creating tables, having relationship between tables, etc. And who does this? This is done by the developer. And this stage is called implementation. So first stage is called modeling stage. Second stage is called design stage. Third stage is called implementation. And then the implementation stage is where we implement the database. This is what we are going to be studying. Mainly our focus is this. We will be introduced to how to model a slightly overview level, design overview level, implementation overview level. Okay, so this is the set of steps that are used. So with this, we will stop today's session. But before we end today's session, just to do a recap. So initially I gave my introduction and we went through what is going to be the broad coverage for basic SQL Server. What is the requirement? Then we moved on and we saw what is data for business and what are the two types of data: OLTP, online transaction processing, or transactional data, and analytical data, and how the movement comes. Then how do you design and then implement a transactional system? So we are looking at various stages. So from physical system, you convert to logical system using modeling. From logical system, which is present, you normalize or you optimize through design. And optimized system you implement, that is done by the developer. So this is the short of what we have. seen. With this, we will end the session. Before we close, I just request all of you to fill in the form. I'm showing this form. This form is there in the chat also. This form URL is there. This is a form. Those who are interested in the training and information about not only this training, other trainings, you can fill this form, give your details, and Go Online Training will get back to you. So before we close the session, any questions from the participants here? I see Raju, I see Ram, I see Sirisha, and I see Vishal. Any questions, Raju? Any questions, Ram? Any questions, Sirisha? Any questions, Vishal? Okay. So please fill this form. If there are no questions, that is fine. Any content related question you can ask me. Other logistic related questions like timing, etc., you can directly get in touch with Go Online. So I please urge you to fill in this form, those who are interested in this basic training. So with this, we complete the basic training demo, first demo. We'll have one more demo session tomorrow for the same, where we continue. We'll recap what we have done and we will continue. And from the next session onwards, people who are interested, you can talk about the fees and you can join the session. So today and tomorrow is a free demo session. Okay, so the next training would be in the same URL. That would be the Advanced SQL. Those who are interested in knowing about Advanced SQL can log out and log in because I would be moving out for half an hour. The next training will start at around 9:30. It is a Advanced SQL Server training. There also we will look at what is the course coverage, etc. That is how it is. Yeah. Any questions? Raju? Ram? Sirisha? Okay, so I'll give you some time to fill in the student information form. So I'll be stepping out now and we will then look at the session tomorrow. So I welcome all of you again and happy to have made this choice. We will look at the session tomorrow. Continue the session. Thank you.